This is the exact way as to how I made $18,200 in 3 hours with this one psychology trick. That's my IG, creator Ruben. Feel free to DM me if you need any more help. But in this video, I'm just going to go over exactly how I actually made $18,200. And it's just going to be straight source. So pull out a notepad, write this stuff down. You're definitely going to need this. And at the very end, I'm also going to go over some bonus tips that you need to start implementing today to actually also get similar results like this, improve your sales skills, get better clients, and just be a better business owner in general. So I'm going to go over and show the payments. This was the first payment I collected. As you can see, you can add this up. The second payment, this was in USD. So once it converts to AUD, this comes out to 6K. And then finally, another payment of 9K. So how am I actually going about collecting these payments of 9K, 6K, and 3K just quite casually? First, what I do is I actually run a creative growth operations agency. So what we do is we work with content creators and help them monetize their audience and build them out content done for you infrastructures. And I'll actually go in depth as to what these above payments are for. So these initial payments were actually initial setup fees that we charge clients or creators to set up their account and even just start working with them. So with these payments, this wasn't just a one-off payment. This was just the initial payment that they paid, just so we can start working with them. And then we also did get paid further at later periods of the work. So the work that we actually did for this was we conducted market research. That's what this fee covers. This fee also covers creating the master messaging. If we had a content creator that we're trying to monetize with a paid school community, it was also in creating the offer for the client's audience, creating a video sales letter, which isn't an easy task. I'm not talking just a Loom recording over Google Docs, which I'm sure you've seen. We're talking well scripted, well filmed out VSLs that are sales optimized to actually guarantee higher converting leads. We also then came in and optimized our creators' Instagram's pages, figuring out the funnel and then creating it. And I'm not just talking a social funnel, which you may have seen in my other video about just social media pages into just DM closing. This could also be web pages. This could be running ads. This could be actual sales calls as well. And then finally, creating the community, whether this is done through school, Discord, or Circle. And then finally, closing the initial members. So I'm just going to go over exactly how I did this. And these are two main distinctions that I need you to actually take note of, because this is what's actually going to show you why I'm able to close 18K pretty casually, pretty lightly, not really stressing, not really forcing my clients to pay. But these clients are practically throwing their money at me because they are very satisfied and confident in my capability to do what I promised them, just because of how I conduct my sales process. So over here, this is what the salesperson looks like for the average person. This is just an image of your client, right? So you pretty much start them off in the discovery phase. This is when you jump on the call, ask them a couple of questions, try and figure out a bit more about them. They ask you a couple of questions, try and figure out a bit about you. And at this point, the client's pretty much confused. And this phase is why the circle's red is it's not the most comforting for someone to just jump in, especially if it is just a cold lead as well, because you have to warm them up. People aren't just going to hand you over this money. If you finally get out of the discovery phase, what then happens is you then pitch people. At this point, you would pitch your client, and the client would once again be confused. Not fully confused, they just be confused as to the price. They'd have objections. So as soon as you go to pitch, what happens is your client is now confused in the objection handling phase. This objection handling phase, you are now again red hot. And what happens is 90% of people get stuck in this as they don't ask the right questions in the discovery phase. Also, once you actually come to the objections phase, there should be no real objections if your discovery was done right and the setting prior to the call was also done right. The only real objection at this point would be a price-based objection if they don't have the money, which of course, if you are interested in working with them and you genuinely think you can help them, you can then compromise and structure your payment however you seem fit. And then finally, the other big problem that most beginners face in the objection handling phase is you genuinely can't get better at this unless you prepare or actually go through all the known objections. So there's two ways to do this. The first way is to actually go about and run practice sales calls. The other thing would be what me and my partner, Nick, Creator Nick, check him out on Instagram. What he likes to do, what we like to do is we sit down and actually look at our products and see exactly what objections clients may have. We then go through all of our recordings, write down these objections, and then have pre-prepared answers ready to go. And then after this, we then run practice sales calls with each other just to make sure that we are good with whatever objection we get thrown our way. And we can actually navigate these objections and properly educate the client. And finally, back to the objection handling. If you do manage to get out of this phase, which is just a small 10% of you, what happens is you have now informed your client and you've then taken them from being confused to informed. And at this point, you've now closed your client. Now that itself is a great way that most beginners come about doing the sales process, and that works pretty well. A lot of people use this style. Renzo Guevara, the TikTok sales guru, if you've seen him, who also runs a social media marketing agency, Charlie Morgan, has similar phases to his sales process. If you've seen him on YouTube, shout out Charlie Morgan. But I'm just going to quickly explain what my sales process kind of looks like. So when it comes to me, my sales process starts off with the discovery phase and the objection handling. What I try and do is I try and jump in there. I try and ask the questions that I need from my clients just to get enough information to see if my service can even help them. And as I'm going through this, I'm kind of dealing with their objections as we go throughout this. So pretty much the client, I know as much as I can about my client, and I'm answering all the questions that they may have. What then happens is they're confused at this stage, and then as soon as they kind of understand everything, they're informed. And when they're informed, we can leave our confused client over here, and they're now informed and they now understand your product. They understand everything you've told them if you have done this right, and they also understand why all their objections will be taken care of by you. What then happens is I then pitch my client. Because I'm pitching my client after they've been informed, they're going to be more receptive to actually wanting to work with me. And if we just come back and have a look at the other side over here, see how you're pitching your client before they're informed. Because you pitch them before they're informed, there's this large barrier in the way between you and your client, you closing your client, you collecting the money, your client actually working with you. That is a barrier that I don't like to even have up in my sales calls. And because I don't have that barrier up, and instead I like to educate my clients as much as possible, deal with all their objections, and then pitch them, what then happens is I can get to my client close. If we now compare this process, we can then see how with this phase, everything up until the client is informed, you've done the discovery, you've pitched them, you've handled all the objections, but you've also pitched them very early on. What this does is it just puts up that barrier, as I mentioned earlier. So this is pretty much how I'm actually able to close these clients. And now I'm just going to go over exactly how can you go from moving from the left-hand side, becoming an average salesperson, to becoming me in a sense, to not get too cocky as well. So all you have to do are these four things. One, you have to genuinely care about your clients. You have to care about their needs, their wants. You have to understand them on a deeper level. What I like to do is I like to know my clients more than they know themselves. If I can find a hobby that they did 3 years ago that they posted, I'd like to mention it. I'd like to see what they were thinking. After that, you have to 100% believe in your product or service and know that it's definitely going to help. You've seen people, whether that's door-to-door salespeople or people that you reached out to online for some sort of paid program, when they don't believe in the product or the salespeople don't believe in the product, it's very easy to tell. You can pick up on this, and as soon as you pick up on this, you realize I'm not really that interested, because if you're the person trying to sell this to me and you don't believe in the product, why should I come in, pay you, and actually use this product or service? After that phase, you then have to get the reps in ASAP. This can be calling up your friends, doing mock sales calls, working with your partner, doing mock sales calls, taking actual sales calls just to see how confident you get. Make sure these sales calls are recorded, because as soon as you start recording these sales calls, what happens is you then go from just having randomness appear, you'll then have a sort of process to what you're doing. You can then review. And as we mentioned earlier, system thinking is extremely important. You need to track your inputs, your outputs, so you can actually make this better. And which leads me to my fourth point, which is get the feedback and making necessary adjustments. Making sure you get that feedback, making necessary adjustments could be the reason why your sales closing rate goes from a 20% to a 40%, which is extremely large. in most industries. Now, I did mention that I would have bonus tips available, so I'm going to quickly go over that. The only bonus tip that I really need to tell you today is a sales script at the end of the day really isn't needed. Yes, I know that's crazy. A lot of people do recommend you using a sales script because it gives you a structure, it gives you a format. But at a certain point in time, you, or me personally, I just don't feel like a sales script is needed. And I'll go over why. You've been on a call, and if someone asks you, oh, well, what really motivated you to take the time out of your day to hop on a call with me? This question has been severely overused. I've heard this time and time again. And when I talk to my clients and I don't actually say this in my sales calls, they look at me with a bit of shock, asking me, wait, why aren't you asking me why am I motivated? I know why you're motivated. You're in this call for a specific reason. You reached out to me, or I reached out to you, and you agreed to jump on this call for a specific reason. So I know why you're here. I don't need to hear it again from you just to kind of get you just explaining yourself. And then finally, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10? This question has been extremely overused. Once again, it is very gimmicky. It just shows that you're very basic at sales. There's other ways to obviously structure these two questions. You can structure these two questions exactly how you seem fit, but just these two questions worded like this just don't seem to work the best. If you want more sales advice, go check out Renzo Guevara. He definitely has a bunch of sales source on his Insta, and you'll definitely get some help. So what do you do? So if you're not using a sales script, what do you really need to be doing then? So what you need to be doing instead to go from to actually not use a sales script is just these four main things. One, be a human and have a normal conversation. Genuinely just talk to your client. If you're having a conversation and I ask you, hey, how are you doing? And you tell me, oh, what's the weather like? I'll be a bit shocked because I really don't know why we jump there. Make sure you really go with the flow of the conversation, because as soon as this convo starts flowing and then you're talking and then they're talking, what actually ends up happening is you can actually develop like a deeper, meaningful conversation. You can build trust, you can build rapport. And then so when you finally come to the very end and you're pitching your sales price, your client actually has a reason to like you. And if clients like you, they will end up also paying you because they will see that you're valuable. Finally, instead of using a script, as I said, try and have sections. Try and have an intro section. What I like to do is I like to have a intro section. Tell me a bit about you personally right now. Tell me a bit about your problems right now. Tell me where you are at with your life, like a monetary aspect, how much you guys are making, and also tell me where you are emotionally. Are you happy with life? Then kind of tell me where you want to go. Tell me why you want to get there. Besides just the money and the monetary goal in 6 months or a year, tell me what's really drawing you to do that. And then finally, let me know, why do you think I can actually help you? Or why do you think we'd even be a good fit to work together? And at that point, I'd then like to pitch. And then finally, if at any point of the discovery phase, you don't think you can help out your client, or you don't feel like your product or service will 100% help out your client, don't pitch them. You actually not pitching clients is better than you closing a client and then them working with you and not getting any results just because you decided to lie to them and not be honest. So this, in essence, covers exactly all you need to do to be closing deals just like this, as I did. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on IG. And if you're a creator wanting to work together, feel free to check out my IG. And all my results are up there, pretty open book. Love to have a conversation with you, see if we can even help you out. Take care. Peace.